possibly maybe even the Kennen later on. And we've seen him go through the Irelia, which has been punished time and time again in the regular season.
Well, there we go. We're going to go ahead and get ourselves locked and loaded for our first champion select of the series. Taipei J Team going to be on your blue side. Nova Esports on the red. And start things off, looks like Nova, they took a page out of the Machi book. They said, all right, we're going to go ahead, get rid of that Twisted Fate. Meanwhile, though, for J Team, getting rid of some of those niche pocket picks that a lot of the players like to run on the side of Nova, getting rid of that Nidalee, as well as the Callista that can be, again, flexed between Rocky and Golden Feet. And there it is, the Galio ban as well coming out from Nova.
And you can just see the reaction on ST's face. Initially, when he saw the Twisted Fate ban, he kind of had a cheeky smile. You see the Galio ban, he's a little more concerned. So we'll see how it goes. Well, 3 bans, well.
There it is.
On top of that, too, you got the Lucian getting banned out. That was actually kind of being flexed up toward the top side of the map by a couple teams here in playoffs so far, notably PSG as well as Nova. And then, like you mentioned, the set. So that is 3 bans being exhausted toward ST, but that does leave open this Caitlyn that has been the top priority pick if it is left available on blue side.
And I was just going to say earlier, I think that if you can't rely on ST, rely on Hannah and NOV. I think that those two have been J-Team's best players since J-Team has been a thing, this year. And I'm not surprised to see the Caitlyn get first pick. She is very strong right now. My concern would be that there are champions that are available that can play really well into Caitlyn, prevent her from doing Caitlyn things, and Shin is one of such champions.
Yeah, not hesitating one bit. Golden Feet has played this champion previously, I believe, during the playoffs at least. So it's going to be comfortable for Golden Feet when it comes to going up against such as a very talented player such as Lil V.
Oh, there you are. And we were kind of mentioning, especially last week we saw from Nova, was sometimes a blind Jhin pickup. They are also going to be the ones that say, all right, we're also going to be running this Pantheon, which, of course, could be played from the support role, but could also still be flexed there to G4 in the mid lane if they really wanted to.
I think this next pick for Nova is going to be very telling of how this draft is going to go. Having an AD mid laner in this meta basically means that you're signing yourself up for an AP jungler or an AP top laner, especially since they've already locked in Jhin. So I'll be very interested to see how the next pick goes for Nova. Meanwhile, J-Team has locked in the Orianna for Nesty.
Yeah, very safe. Nesty did pick it once against the Machi series, I believe. Unfortunately, didn't pan out too well. But for Nova, yeah, it could be another Lilia pick, possibly for Ryan. Did pick it twice in their HKA series, and playing a little bit safe, I suppose, if they do lock this in on this Tom Kench.
Yeah, speaking of safety, the Kench is being unbenched, and he will be seeing play here in Game 1. Gives Lil V plenty of safety, but sometimes we do kind of question, when Kench is getting locked into that bot lane, we don't feel like there's a whole lot of playmaking potential, and we'll see whether or not J-Team are going to be able to survive any kind of initial aggression coming out of Nova, but we were talking about what was Rocky going to be put on here, and it looks like it's going to be that blindside Renekton over on red here to finish off their first phase of the draft.
And I'm just holding my head in my hands here because what scares me now is that you've got 2 point-and-click stun champions and ban phase coming around, which means that if you're J-Team, you could just ban 2 AP junglers, and you're kind of in a tough spot when it comes to drafting for the rest of the duration of the 4th and 5th pick when it comes to Nova.
Yeah, makes me wonder what choices does Nova have. I mean, Lilia has been picked before. Karthus, Echo is going to be available as well. And whatever is left could, Ryan does definitely have a good AP champion pool at least, which challenges Hana's pool as well.
Well, see, there you are. It is going to be the Lilia getting banned out here by J-Team, so that might be the call. Again, just try and target into that jungle, and one of those prime win conditions for Nova Esports has always been, Ryan being able to find success, being able to help his solo lanes out, and a lot of his options have already been taken away. We'll see whether or not we're going to have a final AP ban. No, instead, just going to get rid of the Bard in case that Pantheon is getting flexed. But if that Syndra is getting locked in, likely is going into the bot lane.
Nah, I think that Syndra's going mid. I think that's a Pantheon jungle because Jin's already been selected. So a bit of an interesting draft here. I think this is okay. I'm kind of concerned about Pantheon jungle right now, especially if he can get blind, but we'll see what J Team has in store for us when it comes to counterpicking them.
Yeah, true. Just as you mentioned, could be jungle for Ryan, could still possibly go at the bottom side of the map, as Pop has played it twice in the regular season. But yeah, Volibear can still be flexed either top side or maybe towards Hana in the jungle. Hana has a lot of experience when it comes to this jungle pick.
Yeah, and I was also interested to see from J-Team the fact that they are actually also running Hana at this point and giving him something that might be a little unorthodox if we get ourselves a little bit of swap up. Rest was running the Volibear before, and that is going to get a Zac pick locked in here for Taipei J-Team in the lower bracket. Our first Zac actually being shown here in the PCS.
So when I see Zac, I think of one thing, which is gank mid. I'm not actually sure which of these two champions is going top. It could be Volibear, and it could also be Zac. So I guess we'll just have to see and wait how the matchups pan out. But really interested to see how this goes.
Yeah, this is also looking towards Nova's last pick. This is a very good flashback, I suppose, on towards Ryan's pool back in spring. Played a lot of Sejuani back in the day, and this does confirm that, you know, this Pantheon is going into Pop's hands once more. And
if I see a Sejuani and a Zac matchup in the jungle, I kind of get an instant throwback into, like, you know, Season 4, Season 5, you know, tank jungles all over the place. It does mean that that Pantheon, though, is going to be going into the bot lane, and technically you're getting a little bit of magic damage out of this Sejuani. So I guess it kind of fits the bill here. Also allows NOV to have a front line.
Well, I can say that I got outdrafted. Putting the Pantheon bot, I think, is a good option here. At least better than putting it mid in this scenario. Interested to see the tanks, you know, kind of have the wet noodle fight in the river. But other than that, I think that putting Zac in a situation where he basically has to gank the Syndra over and over again is interesting. Obviously, Syndra has the interaction with her E, where she can stop Zac from jumping and getting on top of her. So we'll have to see how that goes in terms of it being effective or not. But you know, Zac has some very creative gank paths that he can use to kind of punish these very low mobility comp from Nova.
Well, we'll see if that's going to be the case from Hana. Thank you for joining us for the draft here, Crow. We'll see you afterwards. But for now, we're going to go ahead, get ourselves locked and loaded for Game 1 of our lower bracket quarterfinal between Taipei J-Team and NOVA Esports.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
And on we go. First game of our series between Taipei J-Team and NOVA Esports. It gets scary now, though. You are in the lower bracket. Both of these teams actually were in the upper bracket. NOVA, though, got knocked down there by PSG, and Taipei J-Team by Machi now find themselves facing off against one another. Back in spring, you could have given this to either side. Both teams was able to take a game off one another, but come summer, Taipei J-Team were able to find a new identity. Unfortunately, that identity seemed to be a little bit weak up in their series up against Machi, and we started to see a lot of the same mistakes that we saw back in spring. And now NOVA here with an opportunity to kind of prove themselves as being able to go toe-to-toe with some of these former teams from the LMS in a best-of-5 series and try and show that, hey, we can make that top 4 that we were aiming for at the start of summer.
Exactly. When we look at Taipei J-Team back in spring, just as we mentioned earlier, they didn't have the prettiest record to start with, and that's the reason why when they went in towards playoffs, they got a little bit more braver, having to sub the mid lane, or for example, instead of Nestie, I believe it was Kyorb. Therefore, it seemed like they were not playing towards the championship anymore, but rather experimenting this time around. Today, it's very different. They're fighting for their lives and still having a good and amazing start with having only 3 defeats in the summer regular season. That's the reason why, you know what? They'll be bringing out all of these possible secret picks that we've first time be seeing here on this, for example, Hana on this Zac.
I'm not disagreeing. I like myself some Zac play. He was like one of my first jungles to actually ever come out when I started learning League of Legends all the way back, you know, in Season 4. But to see it here in Pro, it seems like a very kind of out of nowhere pickup. And Maybe that's just kind of speaking a little bit to the idea that, you know, Taipei J team are very much trying to just go in for this all big wombo combo where you have that Zac jump in with the shockwave and you got a beefy front line that's just trying to protect a little V. We'll see if that's going to work out. I feel like G4, if he wants to prove himself, though, to being in a capable spot where he's able to take down some of these strong solo lanes from, you know, Taipei J team as well as Machi, you have to show yourself. Meanwhile, top lane, though, we were wondering, are we going to see that first strike come out of Rocky and Ryan? It appears to be the case. The stuns land, and that first blood over to Renekton for Rocky.
Yeah, Rest a little bit aggressive there at the top side of the map, extended rather into the lane. So even though there was decent vision over at the river, it was a little bit too late for Rest, even having to burn a flash right away on Rest's top side.
So there you go, first blood for Nova as they're able to strike on the map first, and this is where we kind of expected it. You're going to run this Renekton, pair up Ryan, who's in a melee, you know, synergy there with your Sejuani, and it's going to be an easy gank here until Rest gets himself some safety in the form of that ultimate.
Exactly, very strong level 3 for the Renekton and as well as the Sejuani. So a very easy gank, I suppose, coming from Nova. And yeah, going back towards the tank portion of this matchup, I think it's due to the fact that Nova is perhaps, or rather both of these teams are expecting it to go the long round, because most of the time we see Ryan and Hana having to play a lot of these early game junglers, and if they don't work out, they look like they only have the one purpose, having become a CC bot. At least for Ryan or Sejuani and for Hana, they have some sort of that meat shield potential if it goes the long way.
But there you go, Nova, they're going to be happy with that start on the top side of the map. Meanwhile, bot side, though, we are going to pay attention to this Jhin as well as Pantheon coming out from Nova, and unfortunately when you're going up against a Tom Kench, Pop, if he wants to try and all-in onto Lil V, it's not usually going to be getting a whole lot of damage out, and the range matchup not favoring Nova at all at this point. They are starting to bleed a little bit of CS here, now down almost 2 waves as Lil V's looking to crash another wave in.
Exactly, and having the fact that you have Woody as your Tom Kench, it's very hard to, even if you reach level 6, gonna be a little bit tricky to try to close the range and finish Lil V out in towards the lane. So possibly we'll have the need of Ryan's assistance to at least relieve pressure later, or once we see Ryan to keep up with the pressure rather continuously at top side instead, for Golden Feet to be that sacrifice, if you will, holding the fort at bottom side.
Interesting, though, if Hana decides, all right, top side has been kind of forfeited at this point, kind of realizing that Rest is continually just kind of pushing on in and Ryan's nearby. Is he actually going to be there for a counter gank, or are we going to see the Zac at least try and apply some pressure in toward the mid lane, like Crow said, where usually your one job on Zac is gank time and time again on that mid lane and try and get your lane up ahead. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of good follow-up from Nesty until that level 6 is available for that Orianna.
Yeah, having to get that shockwave in, especially the fact that G4 has been landing or pushing Nesty into his own lane constantly. But, you know, Nesty's still doing a pretty good job having to keep the CS intact against G4, despite having an awkward start for him. We'll have to see, though, as Ryan making his way towards the river portion of things, as Lil V and Woody a little bit extended here.
Need to try and help out on this bot lane. Meanwhile, mid, though, G4 able to find himself a nice combo, but not a whole lot of mana to use there. Shockwave will come out from Nesty. Just trying to force G4, I guess, back at this point. Want to try and burn that teleport maybe ahead of this upcoming dragon fight, as Nesty actually already had to go back to base himself. It looks like G4 will at least respect that. Ryan, though, not afraid to jump on over the wall and actually start up this dragon.
Yeah, and back timings too from Hana, even though he already finished his Krugs, not yet level 6. Unfortunately, therefore, has to give up any sort of dragon presence at the bottom side of the map. And I think it's a little bit, what do you call this, characteristic for J-Team, especially if they want to make moves around the map, they have to sacrifice most of the time bottom side or dragon side control, except that we haven't really seen Hana gank yet.
Yeah, Hana, well, I guess he's still waiting for that let's bounce, possibly for the Zac, before he really wants to draw any attention. It's rather difficult for him to go and dive that bot lane as it is consistently pushed in, and when you're diving onto a Pantheon with Ignite, you are likely going to be trading back at least one kill, so maybe they just don't want to try and fumble that up. Nice invade, though, coming out from Rest is going to actually steal away that red buff away from Ryan. Will he get out, though, is the question, as Rocky just comes down the river and kind of realizes, hey, what you doing? Dominus going to be popped. That forces Rest to pop his ultimate to go back to safety, as Rocky just asserting dominance so far in the matchup, already now up 2 waves as far as CS goes.
Yeah, I think, you know, Ryan having to put a lot of pressure at top side for 2 consecutive times really put Rocky ahead. And that is the name of the game for Nova when we look at their spring performance as well. And this is going to be just according to plan, especially that they also are able to get control over Rift Herald. The check mark is intact. They managed to get first dragon, and now they're moving towards Rift Herald. And J-Team, again, unable to do as much because mid lane is constantly pushed.
And there you go. Kern Call comes out from Golden Feet. Unfortunately for him, deciding not to go for the 3rd and 4th shot, as they realized they weren't going to be able to get enough damage. But there you go. Nova, with that pressure, are able to translate that into the first Rift Herald. We'll see if they're able to open up anywhere on the map here to start things off after, again, claiming just all this objective control.
Yeah, just according to plan again for Nova. Again, in sacrifice to the constant letting go of bottom side as Golden Feet and Pop. Again, still trying to hold their ground. Lil V already having a really nice, significant lead when it comes to the CS. Also whittling down the plate slowly but surely as Nova is unable to do much. At least they're able to get their top side ahead, which is, again, the name of the game for Nova.
Well, this is kind of the thing. When you pick up the Caitlyn, you kind of just have this relentless push, and because Ryan has put so much of his focus toward the top side of the map and now even, you know, trailing in toward mid lane, unfortunately, Golden Feet and Pop have just been left out to dry, and they'll have to try and pick up some of their gold during some of these chaotic team fights when Pop is able to jump on in and Golden Feet can try and clean stuff up. But as far as lanes go, that is the one that's currently bleeding the most here for Nova.
I think the good news for Nova, at least, you have a lot of answers to the Caitlyn if Lil V gets too out of control from the laning phase. You've got G4 here on the Syndra. You've got a lot of stunts to work with. You've got somehow a lot of initiation and backline access in the form of this Pantheon when he does his ult correctly, and for Rocky when he set up his good teleport flanks. And I think that's the reason why Nova is a little bit comfortable having to not relieve pressure for Golden Feet at the early point of the game, as long as they keep top side control, and that's their answer for Lil V.
I think, though, that's the thing, that's part of the issue that we keep glaring, though, toward Nova is, sure, Rocky's able to find himself a 20 CS lead at 10 minutes. Awesome. He's on Renekton, though, and even Crow kind of mentioned, everyone loves to go with this Renekton in this region in particular. We see it a bunch over in NA as well, but do we see really any of that lead translated into anything? And in most cases, it doesn't really pan out. So Nova are the ones that are going to have to break kind of that mold and try and say, hey, we're here to actually make things happen. Rocky's going to get into the back line, but if he's never able to jump onto Lil V, it doesn't matter how far ahead he is. He won't be able to get through that front line. In comes holy dive! As that's going to be everything burned onto ST, but they are not able to actually finish off the kill. And now, unfortunately, the dive goes awry, as that's going to be a kill traded back on over to Pop. Ryan able to get himself back to safety. Rest has his ultimate available, but unfortunately, I do not think he's going to be able to claim it, as Hana, as well as the rest of the squad, able to intervene and prevent ST from going down.
Yeah, great timing. I believe Nova didn't have much information where Hana was, so imagine if he wasn't farming the Raptor camps. I feel like they could have done so much better. There's a little bit of trade at the top side of the map, but yeah, that could have gone amazingly well for Nova, but it was disastrous as Nesty is still able to survive, and that's 1-1 at least on the kill scoreboard, but Nova will be a little bit more wary now when they decide to do that aggressive play.
And that's the thing. We kind of said, all right, you know, you got yourself a bit of a dive composition here coming out from Nova, but the fact that you expend 3 ultimates onto ST and you're not able to kill him, that's a bit devastating. Golden Feet is just going to get pushed off his tower. This is the one thing that Nova has just kind of conceded, and they said, all right, our bot lane's going to lose out. But now that Caitlyn is up almost 30 CS, has been able to get every single plate off this bot lane tower, And now Nova, the one section of the map that unfortunately they just gave up, is starting to run out of control.
And because of that, it will create this domino effect of Nova having not the same control as they did when it comes to the bottom portion of the map. But they do have this Rift Herald, and they managed to create some sort of opportunity from that back timing, as Lil V just want to go back to base, buy some items. So that means at least they still have a good foothold on towards this dragon as they release the Rift Herald. Unfortunately, not a lot of value as Nesty is there in the mid lane.
Do see that dragon is being taken on the side of Nova by that ward being put down by J-Team. With that, Nova are able to secure their second Drake, as we'll be picking up some Cloud Soul to start things off here in Game 1. So some extra cooldown reduction on the ultimates, but nonetheless, even though it feels like Nova do have control in some areas, the fact that Lil V is now already finished off his Infinity Edge and now starting to roll into his second item, a little bit concerning. And once that Caitlyn comes online, that's when we'll start to see a little bit of a response come out from Taipei J-Team.
As long as Nova is able to try and isolate and separate the fight, then perhaps they have a big chance despite having Lil V ahead in the game.
Lil V ahead of the game, but that's the thing. We're not seeing any response from Nova, so they just let another 320 gold go over Lil V. Actually make it now 3 plates. Now we finally get to see a teleport, but Lil V and the rest of the squad should be able to get home to safety, but Pop jumps on in. But that is the thing about the Kench. It just instantly disrupts any dive attempt. If he is nearby Lil V, keeps him alive, and that's 3 ultimates being used on the side of Nova.
Now we'll see whether or not J-Team is able to punish that. 3 ultimates down from Nova. That happened in the mid lane. Unfortunately, no objective was there for the taking, but you gotta look at this. Rocky, our rest happened already.
Rest, though, unfortunately, even with the shield, it would just get ripped apart there by Rocky, so he decides to back off, and Rocky's at least able to get some side lane pressure. We'll see whether or not he's able to translate that into anything else, but Lil V was able to pick up. Again, I believe it was 3 turret plates on that next push, so that's another extra 500 gold into the back pocket of this Caitlyn, and he's going to get scarier and scarier as this game goes.
And they're coming back. They press B, and they're going back to base again. Even though, let's just say, Nova has lost 3 ults, this is the second time that J-Team is unable to punish that. And therefore, Nova free reign on this Rift Herald once more, despite, Lil V having such an amazing lead from the start.
So there you go. At least Nova, objective control. They've been able to solidify that here in their first game. I'll give them that. The question is, how are you going to deal with this Caitlyn later on? Because we just saw that combo that they are looking to execute time and time again. You're looking to get that combo in with Pop, with Ryan, jump in onto that squishy member, and burst down Lil V. Unfortunately, if Woody's right next by to him, he's going to be able to just eat him up on the Kench, and then boom, whatever you just used to try and take down that Caitlyn, not going to happen. And Lil V is just going to get another turret for free at this point. There's absolutely no response coming out from Nova, and we're not seeing any side lane pressure come out from Rocky.
Yeah, this is just, Caitlyn doing Caitlyn things, absolutely demolishing from one tower to another, and now Lil V hoping to get that mid lane, as that's the only one standing from, J-Team having full control over those both river sides. And you mentioned pressure. Rocky scared rest once more, as there's not a lot of vision to work with, could possibly risk rest of a potential dive. But seeing Ryan now seems to not be the case, as Nova will just decide to trade towers from bottom to top.
Well, you see mid lane, Hana almost able to jump on top of Golden Feet. Ryan and Pop could look to try and jump in themselves, but deciding against it. G4 going to come on over. Lil V gets eaten up immediately once again. Woody, though, is going to be that main target. Hana, though, able to get on top of G4. Shockwave does not connect from Nesty, as G4 is able to get himself back to safety. But we just see the reoccurring trend. Woody is able to save Lil V. They use all their ultimates, and then it almost gets turned back on their heads.
Yeah, going back to what you said, as long as Woody is around, Lil V will get to survive another day, despite Nova having to dish out so much. And I think the good news for Nova, they aren't punished as hard as we expected it to be. That means they are able to at least contest for the next dragon to spawn. Therefore, that will be third. That will mean them being closer and closer for that Dragon Soul point for Nova.
So it's going to be 40 seconds on Cloud Drake. That would net Nova the third stack of the game. Do note, though, that Lil V gone ahead and picked up the rapid fire. We're not seeing the Storm Razor come out second like we usually expect out of the Caitlyn's, but not end of the world. And you do see that massive gold lead on Lil V. It's all on to that Caitlyn. Almost 8,000 now gold. 2,500 above Golden Feet. He's going to get caught out, though, if he's not careful. Ryan was looking to maybe land an ultimate, but it's on cooldown, and Nesty's nearby to keep it safe. And again, there you go. At least Rift Herald is going to be finally used here by Nova, and that should allow them to crack open the first tier tower in mid lane and gain some of this map control through the midsection of the map.
Yeah, they're the first ones in to remove that portion of the map, as Lil V still looking towards to get that trade in the mid lane. And this puts Nova, again, a good foothold and ground towards this dragon. It's getting chucked really fast.
We'll see here if Hana wants to try and go for the steal. Ends up getting himself ready. Goes on over the wall himself. Teleport going to come out from Rest as well. He's going to have that available. A nice shockwave, though, comes out from Nesty. And G4 is going to get caught out as Rest flashing on forward on the bear. Pops the Stormbringer and is able to take down Pop just like that. And Nova, they were able to set up all of this objective control. And Rocky got himself ahead, but it doesn't matter if you're in a 1v4 on Renekton. And just like that, Taipei J-Team able to open up the door onto a 4,000 gold lead.
Exactly, that's what just happened. Just like that, Nesty is able to turn things around in that choke point as well. G4 being a little bit too forward because he wants to set up the stuns, but it also exposes you to plays like that. Unfortunately, that choke point was the death of Nova, having that numbers disadvantage. Ryan tried to save that fight by having to at least trade the dragon. Unfortunately, Hana is able to swim White War, and Rocky is in no man's land. At least Golden Feet is able to survive, but what can you do? Everybody's dead.
And that's the thing, maybe it's just not showing the respect over an ST. You are in a choke point up against an Orianna, and you go that close into the action without flash, G4? That's a mistake that you cannot be making here. And just like that, Nova, you know, cool. Rocky was able to get himself ahead, but we just saw the usefulness that is Renekton when he comes in late to the party. And unfortunately for Nova, I think their window of opportunity to kind of use anything this game has kind of passed, and it's going to allow Taipei J-Team to scale back up.
And that has been the story of Nova, I suppose. I mean, you mentioned earlier that normally they would get a lot of topside lead, but not translate it into anything as much. And that could possibly be the story for this game in particular, especially J-Team is just free to reign, even though, yes, they did give up 2 Rift Heralds, the first 2 dragons of the game, but they're playing to their composition of having such a strong 5v5. Now, Nova is just banking on the fact that before objectives spawn, they're able to take a pick at least, because when it comes to the 5v5, they will not be able to match.
The issue here, though, is you just saw that gold graph. The fact that Lil V is almost at 10,000 gold at, 20 and a half minutes and looking to now, looks like, pick up that Storm Razor. This Caitlyn's a massive issue. Golden Feet can't step up without just getting chunked down like he just was, and unfortunately, we've seen the combo a couple times now from Taipei J-Team, whereas if Lil V gets caught out by Nova exerting all their ultimates, Woody just eats him up, and it comes down to the fact that we wanted to see more action out of this Pantheon early. We wanted to see more dives. We wanted to see more dives like we saw in that mid lane, but we just never did, and they weren't able to get any portion of the map ahead outside of Renekton.
Yeah, we've only seen that dive once, and so far, that's the reason why Nova is having a difficult time. And the fact that, yes, the laning phase is done, that's the reason why, Woody is just sticking to Lil V like a Yumi, but he's Tom Kent, makes it even much harder for Nova to execute their composition. It used to be the trio G4, Ryan, and Rocky, but now it's a different trio that includes Pop. And now look at that, Nova is just forced to just give this up.
I see Rest, again, using emotional warfare against his opponents. Spamming the emotes because he might as well. We're not seeing any response from Nova. Ryan getting a little bit greedy, just trying to at least take some of his own jungle. Rocky again in a side. He's going to teleport toward the top side of the map instead of just backing like he could have, but He's
Good
going to get
call.
himself out of safety, but that's a teleport down, and that's a teleport that you want to have on a Renekton. Maybe they could try making something out of this, but it just looks like a little bit sloppy play from Nova at this moment when they had the opportunity to blow this game wide open.
It's like the tale of Nova all over again. I think the common saying of Nova fans and probably even broadcasters are they had it, but it doesn't look like they really had it from the beginning of the game. And so far, at least they're able to trade objectives and punish J-Team being overly aggressive of having to punish Rocky split pushing at the bottom side of the map. They're able to trade that out, get at least pressure at top side, remove that first tier tower, and that gives them a little bit of breathing space when it comes to the later portions of the game where Baron will be the juicy target for both of these teams.
We'll see. Colton Feet was able to at least pick up his rapid fire cannon finally. Not the greatest timing for Jin, but nonetheless, doing what he can as he's starting to fall a little bit behind here in the CS matchup. And it's unfortunate too, because we mentioned with Nova during our champ select in pre-game that this team felt like they didn't have to worry about bot lane anymore. But unfortunately, when you let over a Caitlyn and decide to go Jin, as we mentioned a couple times from them, there has been times that the question of the priority on Jin for Colton Feet has been kind of brought up, saying, is this really worth it? We do see, though, a sneaky play coming out from Nova. It doesn't look like J-Team actually know that this is going on. Rocky and Ryan are slowly taking this Baron. They are going to be able to do it, but we do see Dragon now taken, so that's going to be now the extra 20% cooldown reduction onto the ultimates of J-Team. Now, though, G4 and the rest of the squad just go on over. Now realizing Type A J-Team, they say, okay, never mind, Baron's being taken, and Nova are able to sneak it.
Yeah, sneaky by Nova, knowing that, okay, J-Team will surely want more dragons because they're behind in that dragon point. Let's just sneak this out, put 3 members in the mid lane just to make J-Team think that they're trying to contest a dragon still. And even though it was slow for Ryan and Rocky to hold that fort in the Baron pit, it was still enough because easy shift for Nova to just transition to that portion of the map and finish the job. And it will be too late for Type A J-Team to even try to contest that. Now Nova is back in the game.
And rare do we actually get to see those Baron calls actually come to fruition. Usually there's a ward or something comes out, but Type A J-Team deciding not to even consider the fact that Ryan and Rocky are not seen on the map for almost a minute. They say, oh, they couldn't possibly be going for Baron. They wouldn't go for Baron. They never go for Baron. And bing, bada, boom, just like that, Nova now have themselves the ability to siege for about 2 minutes and maybe try and recover some of this gold.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, yeah, probably just trying to farm, doing, you know, the usual Rocky and Ryan things in the jungle, waiting for things to happen. Because that is what happens in the mid to late portions of the game, where Nova will just try to see and be a little bit more reactive, despite not having a huge lead. But for J-Team now, even though they have a 2k gold lead, Nova seems to be very aggressive, as that's a very dark map.
A dark map, and at least Nova should be able to try and use that to their advantage. Try and catch out any member. Do note, though, that Lil V just going to continue farming away on this Caitlyn without any worries in sight. I'll be frank, I've been a bit disappointed with Hana's Zac. I'm a little disappointed in the first showing of the Zac that we saw here in the PCS. It's been a bit calm, to say the very least. Not very proactive. Mid lane, though. Lil V and Woody not afraid to step up. Do have to worry, though, that Ryan is nearby and could easily turn that at any point. And you do see that crit damage that comes out from Lil V. Ryan, though he is tanky, doesn't have a whole lot of armor to actually soak up that damage from Lil V, so has to be careful.
Bot lane, though, look at that. Rest is actually 2 levels behind Rocky at this point. Therefore, J-Team really has to exert more resources to deal with Rocky at the bottom side of the map. And with that, at least with that Baron having to expire already, they've only managed to chunk these towers at half HP.
So there we go. Nova able to open up a little bit of the map. Do note, though, that they weren't able to get much else off this Baron. Not been able to actually get that first second tier tower in the bot side of the map. As Rocky decides to back off, minions are going to crash into it. So they're able to get a little bit of extra gold, but nothing really out of the Baron buff. And for me, that's a little bit disappointing considering the fact, like you mentioned, that Rest was down 2 levels. Rocky is supposed to have this massive advantage. There you go. Bring down the extra members. Make it happen. Teleport going to be used here by Nesty. G4 ends up popping the GLP. May want that one back. Shockwave is going to connect. G4, though, still looking pretty fine himself. Ace the hole going to be used. Only tagging Rocky as he's able to intercept the damage. And J-Team, they use some ultimates. Nova, though, just kind of walk away without a worry.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit worried there because, yeah, the GLP was used forward. That means maybe Nova was a little bit shaky, having to run and retreat. But yeah, 1 minute on the clock for the next Dragon to spawn. That's going to be potentially 3 Cloud Drakes on Type A J-Team side that Nova would hope to deny because that only puts J-Team closer and closer to that soul point. And that comes the reset. There's the backs being called. Vision-wise, Nova is still pretty much on the board, as Type A J-Team still struggling a little bit more on that defensive side of things. And now, let's see. Rocky has teleport, G4 has teleport.
And you also can't, like, understate the importance of a stacking Cloud Soul for the side of Type A J-Team. If they're actually able to get all 4 stacks, boom, that's 40% cooldown reduction on something like a Shockwave for Nesty outside of his item build that already has about 20% locked into it with that Ludens. So 60% on the Orianna Shockwave. You could be looking at 2 of those during a team fight. On top of that, for Woody, he pretty much has a double teleport. So if he's able to use that, might actually help out. His Current Call is going to be used. Woody soaking up a majority of the damage. Nesty coming on over there toward the side as Nova are able to find themselves a way into this mid lane. Rocky on the top side of the map. It looks like J-Team the ones that say, all right, we're going to go ahead and try and get ourselves a dragon out of it at the very least. But now, Inhibitor Tower is going to get threatened. Is going to be cleared out, though, as Rocky's only able to get to the second tier tower up in top lane. Ryan catches out Hana, but Hana just backs off. And once again, both of these teams don't want to do a single thing, it seems.
For Nova, they're just trying to avoid Lil V's reign throughout this game. That's the reason why we see Nova having to pull back out once Lil V is back in the game and back in the board. And they're trying their best to take advantage of that little time frame to get at least an objective out, which is, in this case, would be the turret. And Nova, while they're happy to take that as a consolation prize, there will be another really scary threat on the board, which is the Baron, which will be spawning in a few seconds. Therefore, J-Team will be a complete 5s. Nova, let's see whether or not they're able to get a pick before that, at least.
So now 4 minutes until we get ourselves our next Cloud Drake. And other note is Lil V has hit his 100% crit chance now. So this Caitlyn really gonna start doing some damage. Do note, though, that Colton Feet himself is gonna start actually hitting his next little bit of a spike on Jhin. Opting in for that Storm Razor kind of says, all right, we're gonna wait until that Jhin is at about 4 items, and then he's gonna really start chunking out members. Has to get in range, though, and that is a little bit scary. You also have Banshees completed by G4 for a while back now. Does have Void Staff, so he's going to be able to do some decent damage, but we'll see if he's able to get anywhere close enough to Lil V or if Woody's just going to eat him up once again. And Ryan, got to be careful himself, not going to go into that choke point.
Yeah, a little bit tanky, I suppose, having that Warmugs in, but you see Rocky doing some work still at the bottom side of the map. I mean, this is classic Nova style of things. If top side doesn't work out and doesn't snowball, you can able to match the bottom side. Oh,
so,
dear.
J-Team, they're the ones that say, all right, we're going to go ahead and try and do the Baron, try and force Nova to make a play. Rocky, though, still not hesitating, going up into that 1v1 up against Rest. Both teams going to go ahead and back off from the Baron. You do see J-Team having to go through their own jungle. Nova got to be a little bit careful there. Scout of the Week's not going to connect. And it's back to another reset.
Exactly. I got to point out, though, amazing restraint from Ryan. I mean, if you see that choke point where the rest of the members coming from J-Team just going to be in that single point of that area, Ryan was open for any sort of potential glacial prison play. Especially the fact that Lil V still no, usual QSS. All of that defense will be reliant. Ooh. Oh dear, look at that G4.
That's just one hit, but in they go on top of Lil V. Shockwave comes out, prevents Rocky from actually getting into the back line. Rest goes in, tries to get some damage. Rocky, even though he's up by 80 CS, it doesn't matter because that damn Renekton does nothing at this point. Lil V finds himself the double kill, and that is the issue, Nova, this entire time. Lil V has been scaling away, not with a care in the world. Curtain Call going to come out from Golden Feet. But that's 2 members down on Nova, and now a transition over to the Baron for Taipei J Team.
I mean, the go signal for there is having to put G4 in such a low amount of health, half HP getting chunked out without any sort of punish, as Lil V still is incredibly healthy at this point. And yes, you mentioned Rocky, even though he's just far ahead, his biggest use is to pressure Rest, and Rest alone will never ever match Lil V, especially when they're complete as 5s.
And you saw there, G4 was the one hoping to maybe find a Baron steal, but not the case here, as we'll take a look back. And the sheer fact that Lil V can get in range of G4 and do this is a sign that Nova are just being too hesitant to actually try and take a fight.
Yeah, it was, again, J-Team technically being on that first initiate with that auto attack. And with that 4v5, unfortunately, Rocky had to soak so many on the rest of J-Team squad. Now they have Baron on their side, and now they're hoping to Siege, which is, again, one of Lil V's strong point on this Caitlyn.
Also, GA now completed for Lil V, so if Woody ends up messing up, it does mean Lil V kind of has a second chance at life. But for now, we just kind of seen what ends up happening. Nova, they try and expend all their resources to try and blow up Lil V. Doesn't end up taking place. Overcommit for a fight. Rocky tries to go for a massive flank, but now he's the one getting caught out himself. As Woody flashing on forward, not even going to save that to try and save out Lil V. Shockwave connects the slow as well, and Rocky, he's got all these members on top of him. Doesn't matter. Pings coming out from Nova, but they are in a fury as the team is failing to communicate. Now Cloud Soul going to be taken by Taipei J Team outside of a steal from G4. Doesn't happen. And 4 Cloud Drakes now secured for that extra cooldown reduction on their ultimates.
And with that, just as you mentioned, 4 Air Drakes on the side of Taipei J Team. You know what? Okay, ruin our mid lane. It's fine. We'll continue pushing this because we have a better sieging power and as well as all the capability in the world to dive you.
And now there you go. Siege going to come out from Taipei J Team, and once Caitlyn gets going, there's no real way of stopping her outside of Lil V making a misplay. Ryan's going to get caught out behind, and now unfortunately he can't do anything to try and stop this siege, as now he has to use his dash just get to safety. In comes that Glacial Tomb, going to try and turn this back around, but not going to be the actual option as Lil V once again gets himself back to safety. Rest is dancing on his grave, and now siege continues for Taipei J Team.
Whew, even though Hana was pretty low, that is definitely a big win. Lil V, you have, even though Lil V has no summoner spells left, that's Guardian Angel still in Lil V's pocket to use and utilize for later in case things get too sticky with his siege.
And there you go. Now base going to get sieged upon. Nova just have to kind of watch as that's going to be the flash forward coming out from Nesty. Another kill going on over to Rest. The tower's going to start laying down. And for Nova, the early game didn't look half bad, but unfortunately Lil V was able to scale back up, and Taipei J Team, they don't care whether or not they use everything onto this Caitlyn, because by the time you get close enough to this man, the game's already over. Game 1 in favor of Taipei J Team.
Beautifully done by Taipei J Team. They're very confident, not rattled at all, despite Nova's aggressive plays when it comes to the objective portion of the map. And yeah, Lil V win condition.
Yeah, Crow. We kind of mentioned it, for Nova. Sure, they love to play via Rocky. Unfortunately, nothing really transitioned out there, and we kind of just watched Lil V scale away on a Caitlyn. And we can't hear you, Crow, unfortunately, so not too sure what the case is right there, but I think we're agreed upon that overall, it kind of felt like that Lil V ended up becoming a problem and ended up being the problem, Riku.
Yeah, because, I mean, they had answers. They had Pantheon, they had the Syndra, they had Ryan. Again, a lot of CC on the board, a lot of single target CC, if you will, and a lot of AoE. But if the laning phase doesn't pan out for them, if they aren't able to snowball, no answer for Lil V at all, because Woody will just be sticking to him like a Yumi constantly from mid game to late.
Let's see. Do we have Crow now? Or are we going to see if he's back? Ah, I can't hear him. Oh no. Unfortunately, I don't know what the case is there, but yeah, I'm a bit disappointed to see that on the side of. Oh, do I have Crow now? I did hear him for half a sec.
I hope so.
There we go. We got it sorted out. I don't know what ends up happening. But Crow, yeah, I'm going to throw that back to you, what I originally said there. It felt like, you know, Nova were able to find some advantages in that early game, but we kind of felt like they missed out on that window of opportunity to try and excel this game out of control and just kind of sat back and watched Lil V scale back up.
Whenever you have a Caitlyn that has something like 10 plates and the first turret bonus, you're going to have problems. The thing about this comp is that they're so committed on getting onto the Caitlyn, and because of the Tahm Kench, it makes it very hard to actually finish off the kills. Overcommitting is deadly, as you see here with the Orianna. Even though Nesty may not be as proficient on these types of mid laners, it's not very hard to land a shockwave on targets that are kind of all bunched up like that and choke. So I don't really know how Nova was ever going to win team fights in this situation, because Jhin doesn't really do a lot of damage to tanks, and Nova has 2 of them. And you have to have a means of basically killing the tanks off before Little V kills yours, and that just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, and as you see there, MVP for our first game between Taipei J Team and Nova. Pretty self-explanatory is Lil V. I felt like he was actually the one on his team performing really well, alongside Woody, of course. For me, though, that Zac pickup from Hana, felt like we didn't see a whole lot of that Zac early on during that game. I felt like you could have put Hana on any kind of tank, but nonetheless, they're still able to find the victory overall, and that'll put them up 1-0 over Nova to start off the series.
I'm interested to see how this evolves over the course of the series, because I feel like Hana picking the Zac was kind of a means of ensuring the fact that they could gank the Syndra over and over again, but that didn't really happen. It just kind of wound up being very stale. But again, Lil V did wind up, you know, pulling off again 10 turret plates and first turret bonus. That's not a small matter.
Yeah, it's just one of those questions whether or not Nova will now respect the Lil V threat, because it was normally, well, having to shackle Nesty in the mid lane, and then they're good and having Rocky ahead. But now bottom lane will be a huge problem as the series progresses.
And that was my thing too. They got Rocky ahead, but we never really saw much pressure in the side lane. Like, sure, Rest was, you know, 2 levels down, but he's still there. He's still a Volibear, soaking up as much as he could from Rocky. And it kind of comes back to, you know, that, you know, Renekton pickup. Sure, you're up ahead 80 CS, but when you try and 1v5 into the backline of the enemy team and get CC'd down, it doesn't matter how far ahead you are.
And again, it kind of is the theme that we talked about. I think it is very worrying that, again, the 2 solo laners of Nova, even in a situation where Rocky is ahead, didn't really seem to have an impact on the game. So I'm really interested to see how this evolves over the course of the series and how they choose to draft differently or choose to move things around as, you know, this thing progresses.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take a short break. When we come back, though, more action from the PCSs. We'll see whether or not Nova Esports can go ahead and try and tie up their series up against Taipei J Team.
CTBC Bank is Taiwan's top financial institution, but we're not stopping there. We're crafting an international brand and already have over 260 outlets in 14 countries. We are by your side ready to embrace the future.